Hey, welcome back to Dear Gunther. Today's story is a little different from the last two episodes because this one isn't about a family conflict or a parent being excluded. This one is about a question that I think is going to become one of the defining questions of our generation when it comes to love. What does it mean to say something you didn't actually write? And does it matter? Here's the story. A man, 35 years old, getting married. He had been meaning to write his vows for weeks. He knew they were important. He knew she would care deeply about them. He kept telling himself he'd sit down and do it. And then the night before the wedding arrived, and he had nothing. So he opened his laptop, and he asked ChatGPT to write his wedding vows. The next day, he stood at the altar. He looked at the woman he loved, and he read the vows out loud. And somewhere in the middle of them, she knew. She didn't know how she knew. She just knew. The words were beautiful. They were perfectly constructed. They hit all the right notes, and they didn't sound like him at all. She walked out in front of everyone, and he posted on Reddit asking, "What do I do now?" Okay, I want to talk honestly about this because I've seen a lot of hot takes on this story. People saying she completely overreacted. People saying he's an irredeemable person who doesn't actually love her. And I think both of those takes miss the real conversation. Let's start with him. He didn't do this because he doesn't love her. He did this because he panicked. Because he's someone who struggles to find words for the biggest feelings. Because he left it too late and then took the easy way out instead of showing up imperfectly with something real. That is a very human thing to do. Most of us have found a shortcut in a moment where we should have done the hard thing. Most of us have outsourced something that deserved our full presence. But here's the part that matters. Wedding vows are not a task on a to-do list. They are not a deliverable. They are the moment in your entire life when you are asked to stand in front of the people you love most and say in your own words what this person means to you. That moment requires you, not a better, more articulate version of you. Not a version of you that knows exactly what to say. Just you, with your imperfect words, your nervous voice, your real feelings that maybe don't come out perfectly. That imperfection is not a flaw in the vows. It is the vows. And this is where I want to be honest about what the bride actually heard. She didn't walk out because the words were wrong. She walked out because the words were right in a way he couldn't have managed on his own. Think about that for a second. She heard vows that were too perfect, too polished, too composed, too well structured for someone who probably says, "I love you," in his own messy, ordinary, unpracticed way. And in that moment, she understood that the most important words he would ever say to her weren't his. I want you to imagine what that feels like. You're standing at an altar. You're in your dress. Your family is there. Your friends are there. The person you chose is looking at you, and they're saying things that sound beautiful, but also somehow hollow. Like the words are arriving without the person behind them. That is not a small thing to feel on your wedding day. That is the loneliest feeling in the world, standing in the middle of the most important moment of your life and realizing you might be the only real one in it. Now, a lot of people online said she overreacted, that she should have talked to him afterward, that she humiliated him publicly for something that could have been worked out in private. And I understand that argument. Walking out at the altar is dramatic. It's public. It's permanent in a way that a private conversation isn't. But I also want to offer a different way of looking at what she did. She didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she couldn't pretend in that moment. She couldn't smile through vows that weren't real and say "I do" to a version of this moment that felt fundamentally false. Some people could have. Some people would have pulled him aside after and dealt with it quietly. But she couldn't. And there is something honest about that. Something worth respecting, even if the method was hard to watch. So, what do they do now? Because that's the real question. They didn't break up over nothing. There is clearly love here. He loves her enough that he panicked because he was terrified of getting the words wrong. She loves him enough that she cared so deeply about authenticity that she couldn't fake it. Those are not the feelings of two people who don't belong together. First, he needs to write the vows, the real ones, not a second draft that's slightly more casual, not another attempt that he refines until it sounds better. The real ones, the embarrassing draft that he probably has somewhere inside him that he was too scared to say out loud. The one that probably starts with something like, "I'm terrible at this," or "I don't know how to say what I mean." That draft, that's where his vows actually are. Second, he needs to understand what he actually did. Not just, "I used AI, and that was wrong," but the deeper thing underneath it. He chose comfort over vulnerability on the one day in his entire life when vulnerability was the entire point. That pattern might show up in other ways in the relationship. And she deserves to know he sees it. Third, she needs to decide what the walkout was about. If it was about this specific moment, about feeling that the vows weren't real, that's something that can be rebuilt. But if walking out was also about something she had been feeling for longer, a pattern of him outsourcing the emotional work, then this moment just made that visible. And that's a harder conversation, but an important one. Here's what I actually think about AI and love. I don't think AI is the villain in this story. The villain is avoidance. The villain is the thing all of us do when the moment requires too much of us and we find a way to show up that protects us from being fully seen. He could have avoided it with a speech he copied from the internet. He could have avoided it with generic vows from a website. He could have avoided it by memorizing something someone else wrote decades ago. AI just made the avoidance faster and more convincing. The real question this story is asking is not, should you use AI for your vows? The real question is, do you love this person enough to be bad at saying it? Because that's what vows actually require, not eloquence, presence, the willingness to stand there with your real words, your real voice, your real nervousness, and say something true, even if it's clumsy, even if you cry halfway through, even if the sentence doesn't finish the way you planned. That's the vow. The words are almost secondary. And I'll say one more thing before we close. If you are writing your vows right now, or if you've been putting it off the way this man put it off, don't ask AI to write them. Not because AI can't make them sound beautiful. It can. But because your partner deserves the version of you that tried and struggled and maybe only got halfway there. That version of you is the one they're choosing to spend their life with. Give them that. We're going to close with a song. This one is about the thing underneath all of this. The thing that makes vows matter in the first place. The terrifying, unglamorous, deeply human act of trying to say what someone means to you. This one's for everyone who's ever searched for the right words and come up short and loved someone anyway.
I had 1,000 things to say. I wrote them down and threw them all away, 'cause nothing sounded like the way I feel when you're standing right in front of me. I've never been the guy with all the words, the kind that make you cry, the kind that hurt in the best way, in the way that stays. I just know you're everything I mean. So forgive me if I stumble, forgive me if I shake. These words aren't from a page somewhere. They're everything I couldn't find a way to say. I'm bad at saying it, but I mean every word. I'm bad at saying it, but you're the reason I still try. All the pretty lines I could have borrowed don't belong between us, so I'll stand here with my crooked truth and give you all of mine. I know I waited longer than I should. I know the silence spoke before the words ever could. But here I am with nothing left to hide, just everything I feel and all the rest of my life. I don't have the perfect speech, I don't have the borrowed lines. I just have this ordinary love and these ordinary hands in yours tonight. So forgive me if I stumble, forgive me if I shake. These words aren't from a page somewhere. They're everything I couldn't find a way to say. I'm bad at saying it, but I mean every word. I'm bad at saying it, but you're the reason I still try. All the pretty lines I could have borrowed don't belong between us, so I'll stand here with my crooked truth and give you all of mine. I don't know how to tell you what 7 years feels like from the inside. I don't know how to explain what it means to look at someone and think, there it is. That's the whole thing. That's what all of it was for. But I'm here, and I mean it, and I'll keep meaning it. Every morning I wake up next to you. I'm bad at saying it, but I mean every word. I'm bad at saying it, but you're the reason I still try. All the pretty lines I could have borrowed don't belong between us, so I'll stand here with my crooked truth and give you all of mine. I mean every word, I mean every word.